thing is happening. This is really what the discos are experiencing. I used Lagos as a classic example. Lagos was built, especially Lagos Island was built primarily with underground cabling. But so many years of neglect, you see overhead cables springing up because it's so much more expensive to deal with underground cables. But the responsibility of these discos is perhaps to go back to what it used to be. And this is massive investment. And these investments come in various forms. Meters is at the heart of this business. The reason people are crying estimated billings or no estimated billings is because people are not metered the way they should be metered.
Is that the fault of the discos? Because many think it is.
Certainly not the fault. How can it be the fault of the discos?
No,
the discos are now planning a metering program.
No,
what happened was before they even
planned a metering program.
Oh yes.
Tell us more.
Haven't they always been planning that? They've always been planning that.
You sound like a union. Now, what's happened with the meters is that before the discos took over, when government was largely regulating it, government didn't have enough funds, as it were, to meter everybody. So that was what was met on ground. So NEC came up with this idea that the discos should be able to get their consumers to pay for meters. This is the advanced CAPME, the advanced metering plan. And then you deduct this from their tariffs over a period of time. The whole idea, and that's why many people went, paid for meters.
Sorry, was this part of your bidding process?
No,
I mean, the bidding
no, it wasn't. We met that when we came on ground. Okay. It was already in place. So many people under the company were actually paying to be metered. Mm. But again, when most of the discos took over, that program itself was faltering because we still had many people unmetered. The estimated billing thing was at its worst. And now, as we speak to you, even for the discos, if they don't meter, they can be in big trouble. To meter, you need to spend lots and lots of money. And we're not talking about meters of yesterday. We're talking about smart meters.
I'm happy sorry to cut in there. I'm happy you said it's at the heart of this business.
It is at the heart
and that was why Chamberlain came in there, because if you look at it critically, which comes first? I'm looking at it in a situation whereby it's a win-win situation for the consumer as well as for the business people. Yes. I'm one of the few privileged ones to have a meter, so I know what comes out of it. Sure. So a lot of Nigerians wouldn't be complaining if they are being metered. Mm-hmm. Most of them have this complaint because of the estimated bills. Sure. In fact, outrageous estimated bills. Sure. What can the discos do in conjunction with NEC and even maybe manufacturers of the meters so that we can have a first move to saying that let's have everyone metered, then we can now talk about this increase.
Okay, as I told you, there was a plan by NEC through CAPME to make sure meters are rapidly deployed. And most of the discos who have now taken over have their own metering plans, and as I speak to you, many of them. It's a lot of money up front, and these meters are not just bought off the shelf. You must manufacture them to your specific needs, which is why you find that the specs are a big issue. You take the metering plan to NEC, they must make sure, because the problem starts with being able to determine if what the input in the meter is actually what you are supplying.
Why do you take it to NEC and not to the manufacturers?
No, NEC is the overall regulator. They have a technical division that makes sure that that particular meter you want to bring in serves its purpose. Otherwise, like you want to bring in, some are being manufactured, but we don't have enough local supply. You're looking at Lagos alone.
Local supply.
You don't have. You simply don't have. You have to bring some of these meters from out there. If we're going to keep the sort of pace you are looking at.
You talked about it meets your specification.
Sure.
Does it mean that each distribution company has its own specifications for its own
there
meter?
are standard specifications from NEC. I'm not saying each distribution, but within that band, you must take it to NEC, and NEC must approve the fact that these meters answer to the requirements before you can bring them in. And there are different grades of meters, don't forget. You have the meters, the industrial meters, you have the maximum demand meters, you have the R2 meters. It just depends on, they're all graded so that the meter does not overread. Now we're looking at smart meters, which should enable the consumer himself track what he's consuming. And just a little more on meters. There's so much electricity theft going on. When people hammer the discos, they should also remember that because of old bad practices, many people don't pay for electricity. I don't know if you see a lot of these cobweb connections in many of the
but you have people who are supposed to check that.
They do. Do you know what happens to most of the people you send? They beat them up. For real, and all that. So there are a grade of Nigerians who don't believe they should pay for this, and because for years they're used to getting it.
Maybe because they've been paying and they're not getting.
No.
Why would you want them to pay now when they're not sure they'll get?
No. That's not the way to go about it, because whenever they don't pay, you who pays, you are subsidizing them. So because one way or the other, the aggregates have to be taken care of.
Mr. Tommy, this picture of metering and the consumer, electricity theft and all, have the discos made out time to talk with the consumers?
I can only speak for EcoDisco. Okay. Yes, we have a very robust customer forum, which we do hold regularly. NEC has its own forum as well, but we also have ours, because we're going about explaining how these things work. And I must confess, we're getting sympathy, more and more sympathy by the day, because initially many people were misinformed about how the electricity market works. And I have been on air several times to say Nigerians should take more than just a passing interest. It's not just a switch on, switch off thing about power. Just understand how it works. For example, when we worry so much about meters or no meters, whether there is power, who shifts first? Should I get the meters before you bill me? Should I bill you? Don't forget, for as long as power is not available, you're looking for alternative ways of generating power. And the aggregate to you is far more expensive. If you combine what you do, if you burn diesel, you're spending about 90 to 100 naira per kilowatt hour of electricity, diesel. If you do gas through the thermal plants, depending on your efficiency, that can come drastically down, depending on the cost of the gas. Right now, because the gas is subsidized, and we'll get to that later, it shouldn't be, but because it's subsidized, electricity sells between 14 and 26 naira, depending on your band of consumption. If, as you're not seeing some IPPs doing, there are some estates that get close to 24-hour supply, but they pay close to 60,
that's
40 to 60, not necessarily from the discos.
From where?
There are people who generate, there are who do their own power. They go get...
not that they get premium service from EcoDisco.
No. Not that they get premium service from EcoDisco. They do. And so there are estates in Lagos, 40 to 60. And they consider it, relatively cheap in contrast to diesel.
About that fact that you take specifications to NEC for importation, I think I remember NEC last year or so saying that they will not allow importation of meters as long as you have local manufacturing firms here who are also manufacturing. So discos have got to take advantage of that. Has that shifted? It's
not shifted. What I'm just saying is it's a supplementary thing. The local manufacturers cannot meet the whole demand. If you work at their pace, then it's going to take you so much longer to satisfy the market needs. So what NEC is saying is they are the first port of call, and then if they can't meet it, come to us. We will give you the permission to get more.
What kind of relationship?
The local manufacturers are protected.
Okay, well, what kind of relationship do discos have with these meter manufacturers? Because we spoke to some of them last week, and they said, look, Yes, they don't have access to the consumers, but they've got several meters waiting, including the smart ones.